Many Canadians might think of cars when they hear the term manufacturing, but the truth is, food and beverage is the largest manufacturing industry in Canada. It's a critical process that occurs between the farm and the plate, from processing of raw agricultural products to the packaging and distribution of food to retailers. It's an industry that provides 350,000 jobs and reaches every corner of Canada. In this episode of Canada's Food System, Our Food, Our Future, a look at the manufacturing of our food, the high safety standards that ensure the quality of our food, and the Buy Canada movement and what it means for the choices you make at the grocery store.
This is where all of our peanut butter is made. But all of our mac and cheese, all of our KD that we make comes off these two lines. So this is where we run our Renee's salad dressing. So this is our desserts line. So this is where we run our cream cheese tubs. Somebody once asked me, what is it like to work in a plant? And I told them it's basically a party of all your senses. You smell, you see, you hear.
41 production lines and 1,000 employees. This is Kraft Heinz, where some of Canada's most iconic food products are made.
We'll head over to our mac and cheese area first, and ketchup is right next to it.
That's Jessica Jones, head of supply chain at the Kraft Heinz manufacturing plant in Montreal, Quebec.
So we run about 500 million pounds of product out of this site across about 650 different SKUs. So 650 different products, flavors, bottle sizes come out of this site. And we produce 50% of everything we sell in this country right here in these million square feet.
Chances are most of you will have a jar of Kraft peanut butter in your pantry. That's because the average grocery store in Canada has around 50,000 different products, and the most popular, you guessed it, the beloved Kraft peanut butter.
When you realize that we run about 90 million pounds of peanut butter a year in a country of 45-ish million people, in which a large percentage of folks have someone in the household who's allergic and therefore not buying it, that's a lot of peanut butter per person, and it is all run off of one single line. So there is one roaster, one processing, one pack line that makes every single SKU of Kraft peanut butter that's out on our shelves.
Wow. So for those of us that don't have allergies in the family, we are consuming a lot of
peanut butter. A lot of peanut butter.
While peanut butter gets a lot of attention from Canadian consumers, it's the story behind its ketchup that goes way back. Here's Maharaj, Vice President of Legal and Corporate Affairs at Kraft Heinz.
H.J. Heinz started selling pickles out of Leamington in the early 1900s. Kraft himself, J.L. Kraft, was born in Stevensville, Ontario, more than 100 years ago. And so we can say that our roots in Canada run deep. We've produced food in Canada for over 100 years, and we continue to make many of the foods that we started 100 years ago still here. I think the great example is ketchup.
The key ingredient for Kraft Heinz ketchup comes from Leamington, a town at the southern tip of Ontario, proudly known as the tomato capital of Canada, where rows upon rows of greenhouses are growing produce.
So early in the beginning of the year, our agricultural group with our seed group with the growers align on the quantities that are going to be planted. Everything starts in a greenhouse. And usually around this time of year, endish of May, June, depending on the weather, everything goes into the ground. So the tomatoes are in ground until usually mid to late August, and then we start the tomato harvest season. So during that period, our partner in Leamington actually stops producing everything else that they make, and all they do is they process tomatoes. So if you're in the area, you'll see these trucks and trucks and trucks coming in from roughly 100-kilometer radius or so, coming into the site, and all they do during that period is making tomato juice and tomato paste. That's it. So all of our tomato requirements are built, like I said, at the beginning of the year. Everything is harvested in that August-September period, and the paste for the entire year is made.
That tomato paste is then transported by truck up Highway 401 to the Kraft Heinz plant in Montreal.
So this is part of our ketchup process. These are the totes of tomato paste. So these are basically the presses that push the tomato paste down for us to be able to make our ketchup.
So we're looking at the ketchup being made.
You're looking at the ketchup being made right there.
We use over 200 million pounds of Leamington tomatoes in our products here in Canada. So we
Every year?
Every year.
Yes.
So we use that into our ketchup, but it also goes into our pasta sauces, our tomato juice. So we use more tomatoes in Kraft Heinz facilities than the entire ketchup industry combined.
Yeah.
It's massive.
It's
not even close.
We run just under 30 million pounds, 25 to 30 million pounds of ketchup annually here.
Wow.
While we're in there, try to stay within the pedestrian area. Just follow me, you should be good.
Manufacturing plants like this operate with sophisticated, innovative systems to ensure accuracy, safety, and quality of product, and are always looking to evolve.
We run peanut butter, a roaster. We're looking at it right now that is as energy efficient as possible. You still need the heat to roast the peanuts, but how do you conserve that? How do you recirculate it within it? We're looking at lines that will allow us to run either compostable, recyclable materials who don't necessarily run the same way. So a compostable film doesn't run the same on a line as an old school plastic flexible film. So there's a lot of innovation that goes into that. So it's mostly about efficiency.
Jessica points out that innovation in the plant is also about the working environment for the employees.
There's technology on how we keep our employees safe as well. So we're currently looking at a program, again, with some cameras that identifies body movement, both from an ergonomic standpoint to safety of, when you've got conveyors running up and down the lines, and how you keep your employees safe to be able to run it.
Canada's food system involves a complex and interconnected supply chain that encompasses many stages.
We have some raw materials for our Philadelphia cream cheese. It's multiple loads a day that come in. So you can have a dozen different drivers going back and forth, just delivering the cream itself to make the cream cheese. That's one ingredient of one product on 4 of our 41 lines that we run, basically.
Once the ingredients are made into food products and packaged, the ketchup, peanut butter, KD, and more enter the distribution phase, where transportation and logistics take over. Wholesalers and retailers ensure the food Canadians want reach store shelves and restaurants.
70% of everything we make in Kraft Heinz comes from Canadian suppliers. We make more than $2 billion of food in Canada for Canadians.
From farms to plants, labs, and grocery stores, 1 in 9 jobs are in Canada's food system. That's 2.3 million people. According to Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, in 2024, the food and beverage sector contributed 7% to Canada's GDP, which is about $150 billion.
There's a lot of innovation going on right now, and I think that's where I'm very excited about it.
Michael Graydon is the CEO of Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada. His organization is the voice for more than 180 businesses in the consumer packaged goods industry. He says many of his members are making robust investments in the technology in their food manufacturing plants.
I think there's a sense of optimism in Canada, I think, believe it or not. We have a number of members making very sizable capital investments right now. One just completed and is under construction today, $440 million. We have another company that over the last 2 years has spent $300 million on plant expansions. We have another company whose plant is in Belleville, Ontario, about to announce a major expansion. So I think one of the things that people find about Canada, one is the workforce is really solid. And if you have some of the multinationals that have plants in Canada versus the plants in the United States, usually the most efficient plants within the network are in Canada.
Does it take away from the care that goes into making that food, or the science or the safety or the regulations when it's robots and automation and innovation?
Complete the opposite. It completely ensures consistent application. And the more you can encase the food within an environment, then there is virtually no chance of contamination as well. So I think it's safer, it's more efficient, and you get much more consistency, and all those things translate into value to the consumer.
Innovation and technology also play a role in food safety. Standards for food safety and nutritional quality in Canada are set by Health Canada and overseen by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Can we say that innovation and safety go hand in hand in the food system?
Yes. Yes, I do not see them as mutually exclusive. They are absolutely, there's an overlap in that Venn diagram of safety and innovation.
Michi Furuya Chang is the Executive Vice President of Public Policy and Regulatory Affairs at Food, Health and Consumer Products of Canada.
I would say the Canadian safety standards and regulations are high, not just because of the existing regulations. In order to trade food and be able to market and sell any given product around the world, there is a standard global minimum threshold that you must meet. And these are standards that are set by the WHO, the World Health Organization. Canada and any country that is looking to trade their product that is manufactured in their country must meet this minimum standard, but also has the ability to establish in-country regulations over and above the WHO standard. Canada has always done that, and that is, I would say, the primary reason Canada is considered world-class when it comes to safety, because our hurdles are that much higher above the minimum threshold.
Does that protect the industry?
It absolutely does, and that's what gives me as a consumer that confidence in our food supply, because I know that anything coming into the country or manufactured in this country is meeting a threshold that is very high.
Michi advocates for food manufacturers to help promote growth and competitiveness. She says most plants have evolved with advances in safety and technology, and it's time the policies are updated to reflect the sector.
We have one of the most restrictive and prescriptive, for good reason, set of regulations compared to any other jurisdiction in the world. That is what contributes to the safety of our food supply. But a lot of those regulations were established 50, 60, 70 years ago and have not changed and advanced with, changed with advances in science and technology. We know now that you can, with new technologies and new manufacturing equipment, we might be able to make the very same product, but in better, quicker, newer ways, or we can use other ingredients that would achieve the same outcome in that product from a safety, from a nutrition standpoint, but the existing regulations don't currently allow for that. So it's been sort of this process of back and forth, industry bringing forward through the FHCP voice information, data, evidence, science to say, we can make this same product. In fact, we can make it better, more nutritious, just as safe, perhaps even safer with some of these new technologies.
In early 2025, a trade war prompted Canadians to look at more than the nutritional label on the food products they were purchasing. A geopolitical crisis ignited a sense of patriotism among Canadians, giving rise to a Buy Canada movement. This sent Canadian consumers in search of three little words on labels on grocery store shelves: Product of Canada or Made in Canada. But what's the difference? And what do they actually mean?
It's confusing. It's not straightforward. And unfortunately, it isn't straightforward because there are different definitions, unfortunately, of product of Canada and made in Canada, depending on what it is that you're applying that claim to. So there's a set of guidelines if it's a food or beverage product. There's another set of guidelines of that if it's a non-food or a natural health product or a drug. And yet there's yet another definition of that when the product crosses the border into Canada. So making a product of Canada claim requires that 98% of the ingredients and the major manufacturing of that is done in Canada to qualify for product of Canada. So a lot of dairy products do qualify for that. Made in Canada, again, when it comes to food, it must meet a threshold of 51% of ingredients, but also the major transformation. So if your ingredients are imported into Canada, but the major transformation of those ingredients into a finished good take place in Canada, that's a made in Canada product.
If that product is not entirely 100% made in Canada, let's say, or product of Canada, maybe portions of the ingredients are, maybe it's manufactured here, but the headquarters is in the United States, for example. Should they still feel pride around consuming and purchasing a product because there are other components that go into it?
Absolutely. And the key factor is who actually manufactures it and packages it. It doesn't really matter where the stuff inside of it comes from as much, but those are really important jobs in Canada, very important to the Canadian economy. You know, we employ almost 400,000 people in our industry. And if you start getting too restrictive, then you'll start to lose some of that employment. But also think of companies that are US based, no manufacturing in Canada. They still have a massive workforce in Canada. Salesforce, they have distribution, they have, you know, offices with accountants and planners, and, you know, they're contributing to the Canadian economy, they're paying Canadian taxes.
While some ingredients of packaged goods sold in Canada are sourced from around the world, it is the rigorous care, quality control, and safety oversight conducted here in Canada that truly ensures the integrity of our system.
If you look at packaging, for example, and then we could talk about ingredients, you know, a lot of the packaging we use here in the plant in Montreal come from local suppliers. We have one about 15 minutes away who does most of our rigid bottles, our bottles for the salad dressing, for the barbecue sauce. But at the end of the day, they get their resins from the United States, because that is where in the Gulf of Mexico area we process the majority of the resins that then go into blow molding these bottles. Same goes for ingredients. And when we look at our ketchup, our paste is grown in Canada, processed in Canada. Our sugar, we don't grow sugar in Canada. However, our partner who processes the cane sugar into liquid sugar is here in Quebec. So there is a raw ingredient that you're not going to be able to necessarily source locally. Our vinegar is made here in Canada as well. So when you look at the majority of the ingredients, they are Canadian processed or made. But when you go back several levels of tier of the raw material that goes into the raw material that goes into the raw material, it is very difficult to get things that are entirely 100% grown from the seed up in Canada.
The packaged good industry is now a global industry. And so you source ingredients throughout the globe, be it in the packaging, be it in the containers we talk about, be it in some of the special spices and other ingredients. So most packaged foods will have ingredients from many parts of the world.
While consumers are paying closer attention to labels, it's important to understand that the food system isn't a straight line. A product might carry an international brand, but the ingredients, processing, packaging, and workforce behind it are often right here in Canada. Choosing to support Canadian food means looking beyond the logo to consider where the product was made, who made it, and how it contributes to jobs, farming, and economic activity across the country. It's a system, and the impact of our decisions often travel further than we think. As the ketchup bottle label is applied with Made in Canada and continues down the conveyor belt to the Kraft Heinz plant, the message here isn't so much about what the label says, rather all the people at every step who made that bottle of ketchup possible. There's no burgers without Kraft singles, no fries without ketchup, and no childhood without a box of KD for lunch. But most importantly, there's no food system without its workers. On the next episode of Canada's Food System, Our Food, Our Future.
70% of our globe is covered with ocean, and less than 2% of our caloric intake comes from the ocean. We have to change that. Canada could be a leader.
A look at the aquaculture industry in BC and what salmon farming means to the future of our food supply. If you'd like more information, log on to our website, canadasfoodsystem.ca. This has been a Spark Advocacy production for the Canada's Food System Initiative.